Okay, this is a special request video about how to gel a sandbox model. Looking at the sandbox model right here. This is the Nepal Himalaya model. It's sitting in a container, if you will, that's just made out of waxed paper. That's to keep any excess gelatin solution, which we'll be making here momentarily, from running out and making even more of a mess than it's already going to. I'm trying to film this with a GoPro camera that is taped to the bill of a baseball cap. Hopefully you're able to see what I want you to see here, and you will be able to hear what I'm saying as well. Obviously you can watch the steps in the video, but the box is here, got some water slowly heating, but before we can do anything with the solution, this model needs its post-kinematic sand pack. So in other words, we're going to bury the surface of the model with just regular sand. It's sand that I don't actually use for making the models. All that sand's going to do is protect the model surface from the gelatin solution that's going to be poured down on it momentarily. So first and foremost, let's go get that sand and bury the model. Okay, so have a nice container of just sort of junk sand. It's not colored. It's not particularly well sieved for size. So it's pretty useless in terms of actually making a model, but it's really good for this. And there's not a lot of mystery here. You just want to sprinkle this material on, bury the surface of the model, and you'll want to do this to at least a centimeter and a half, probably, of thickness, maybe a little bit more. In this case, I'm also going to pile the sand up a little bit thicker at each end of the model, and these are going to act sort of like levees, I guess you would say. They're going to keep my gelatin solution in this lower area such that I can make sort of a little pond of it right here, and be sure there's plenty of gelatin solution to soak its way down into the model, and be sure that everything is saturated here. So I'm going to get just a little bit more sand, but you get the idea. You want the sort of a levee thing going here, and we're going to fill this area with solution. In fact, so much solution that it's going to soak in, it's going to soak all the way through the model, and this whole thing is going to be one big wet cake of gelatin sand. Okay, now the model is completely buried with the post-kinematic sand pack. We'll put my thumb next to it for your reference. That's certainly adequate sand to protect the surface of the model. Now we need to make the gelatin solution. Got a pot of water here, looking at about just shy of 1.5 liters of water. I'm going to add approximately 200 grams of unflavored gelatin to this volume of water. This stuff smells bad. You don't want to spill it on the burner. It's obviously very sticky when it dries. It's a pain to work with, but as far as I know, it's the only way to do this with an aqueous solution that you can do on a stove top in a kitchen, like I'm doing right now. So, no great mystery here either. Open up your gelatin packet, sprinkle it into the water. Okay, there we go. I like a fork for this part of the process. Stir it up. You want to dissolve this material. It's going to stick to the sides. It's going to clump. But if you stir it fairly vigorously, you'll be able to dissolve all that solution. And I'm going to do that 6 more times until all 200 grams or so of that gelatin powder is dissolved into this water. At that point, the solution is going to have sort of a pale yellow color. Again, it's going to smell pretty bad. I want to keep it hot, though, actually just shy of boiling, because when I start pouring it into the model, I don't want it getting cold and gelling before I've added all of it that I want to add to the model. Additionally, you want to have a lot of this stuff. You want to have more than you need, because running out in the middle of the process is not an option. If you run out, you're not going to have time to prepare more solution and start pouring again before this is sort of gelled and set up. So be sure you got plenty of it, and I'll make sure that happens here. We'll stop the video, and I'll see you again when the solution is ready to pour. You now have about 1.5 liters of gelatin solution here. Again, there's about 200 grams of gelatin powder, which was 7 packets, and you can see the fork sticking to paper there already. It stinks in here. Be glad that you're not here in person. This, again, is pretty unpleasant stuff to work with, so if you're in a lab that other people are using, you might want to keep that in mind. If you've not smelled unflavored gelatin before, I think it's kind of a wet dog kind of smell. I don't know. It's just generally sort of unpleasant, so you do want to do this in a location that's tolerant of bad smells. But we're ready to pour this solution now. As far as proportions and the strength of the solution, this is something that usually works pretty well for me. And the color that you see there, that kind of pale yellow, like very wheat green tea or something like that, that seems to be a pretty good indicator of adequate strength to get enough solution into the model. So this next step, you could do this in a variety of ways, but you need to sprinkle, not just pour this solution into the model. I've got a styrofoam cup that I have punched a bunch of little holes in. This tends to make a good sort of watering can type of device that's going to allow me to deliver this solution without dumping it all in one spot and eroding a big pothole in the model here. So let's begin. And that's pretty much all there is to it, what you're seeing here. We're just going to slowly but surely deliver the vast majority of this solution into the model, let it soak into the model, completely saturate it, and then after saturation, we'll take the sidewalls off and cut the slices. And that's something that's going to be done hours from now. Once you have allowed the model to saturate, you're going to want to leave it for probably a longer time than you think you should. You want the gelatin to set up fairly significantly, because if you try to slice the model when it is too wet and too soft, you'll absolutely ruin everything. This is something where patience is sort of a virtue. This is particularly a problem with a model like the one you see here. This contains a variety of different granular materials. It's not just pure sand, and those different materials tend to absorb the gelatin differently, and they also tend to dry very differently. And in fact, because of that different drying, it's actually really tough to get a decent slice out of a model that's constructed like this. And I'll take the camera off here for just a moment, and hopefully you can see there how the solution is preferentially moving in these gray layers. These are the microbead layers. Those are little spheres of glass. There's a tremendous amount of permeability resulting from good porosity and connection of those pores, kind of like a very even grain sized, well transported sandstone, if you will. That's not what it represents in the model, but as far as how the solution moves in, it acts just the same way, and that solution travels very nicely through those microbead layers. It's not so happy to move through these lighter yellow layers, which are the stronger, the finer grain material within the model. So slowly but surely, we'll just watch this stuff soaked in. You can see it's already making pretty good progress, but we're going to want this whole mass to be thoroughly saturated, and that's going to take a while, so I'll keep going with that, and we'll see you again here in a few hours when it becomes slicing time.